Hello there. This is your Sensei Al Bob, and this evening, been thinking about. I listen to you all send me a great number of links, which I go and watch and listen, and you can send me more to my the Dude Awake 42 at Gmail. That's my Gmail account, and I was watching this one with Maxwell, Jordan Maxwell, and it was on this guy's channel. Oh, someone sent me a link. It's 420 TVFR. And that sounds, and you guys send me a lot of links, and I watch them, and sometimes they're pretty good, and other times, you know, they just kind of go on. And my basic thing is if you're projecting a belief or a product line, um, you know, like I said, I have kind of two rules. Well, three rules. Doctor, do no harm. B, I don't get involved unless I can do good and have a positive outcome. And three, when I'm involved, it's not about me. It's about all of my relations, and especially those who are innocent, right? Because if you can get the innocents out of harm's way, it's amazing the outcome, And back in the 80s, I worked with a number of people where, because with, the move towards, after 1970, 1970 was a year that was very similar to 9/11 in 2001. 70, 71, and 72, because the oil embargo changed, and the oil never really. You know what it cost to get a 55 barrel of oil from Saudi Arabia to Texas? 32 cents, right? And that's today's price. So it's like, no, they just jacked the price up. I remember I was working at Windows on the World. I had a friend who owned Restaurants Associates. I worked for him. And I was up at his office, and his office was right up there, top of the World Trade Center, and he was in a corner, and his office faced um, south and west, so he looked right out into the Hudson, into the Atlantic Ocean, and he was high enough to see way out there. And he had these great, like, naval binoculars. They were like a telescope. You could point them at the moon and see the moon pretty good with these things. So seeing them from up there out into the ocean, you could see, 80 miles out pretty well. And one day he said, "Look through those," and he had them focused on something. I looked out there, and this was at the height of the oil embargo, when everyone was waiting for gasoline at the pump. There were more super tankers out in the ocean to the horizon. You couldn't, and that was another one of those moments where I said, "Oh, things aren't what they are that I'm told to." Back in the days, when I was a little peanut, and I used to hang out at Madame Olga Kluber's in her curiosity shop of the imaginary mirror. She constantly showed me things and people who showed me that things aren't as we're told they are, right? But all things are as they should be, right? And that's really where we are right now. And like I said, I started doing this back in May because John Box, he kind of kept sticking his phone in my face when I was telling him the story, and then he put it on his channel, and they would go viral. and I had no real control over them, except for me being me, telling the story. And then he'd get mad at me because people um, got upset with him for interrupting, and all they could talk about was me, and he hated it because it was his channel, and why should he do all this hard work? Um, you know, well, he did it because he was making money off it. He was, when each one of my stories got 60, 70, 80, 90,000 hits, and I did about 40 of them, and each one of them got that many. Whereas when he did his little videos of working out, you know, and the bottom line of all of this is, there was a great French, there was, psychology is a great discipline, but it's not what it's used today. There's this little, book that, oh, you're a sociopath, oh, got this kind of disorder, so we'll give you this drug. No, it's not a sales manual. That's why I'm a shamanic psychosocial cultural forensic anthropologic alchemist, because to understand somebody's psychology, you've got to put it in a frame, a shamanic frame, right? And you have to look at someone's psychology through their social, what their orientation is, what their job is, what their sexual habits are, where they live, what they like, what movies they see, what books they read, that, right? Then culturally, where grandma came from and how they celebrated the holidays and what they used to eat and from the old country. And then forensically, you have to take it apart because we are all a larger sum of our parts than our whole. Then we have to look at it through ethnocentric glasses without prejudice. And then we have to be alchemists and change that ugly bag of water into that gold thread. So, back in the day of Freud, Lacan, Jung, and all the other greats, Joseph Campbell, they were looking at it that way. And Lacan was like the French Freud. And what I liked about him, he basically said, when people talk about other people, they're talking about themselves, and so you are being accused or blamed or any of the above, the folk are talking about themselves. And that's why John is the basic canary in the coal mine, because he's just like Donald Trump, and that Donald Trump, the beauty of Donald Trump is that he's expressing the basic gestalt of the understanding of humanity, and he is the mirror. He's the funhouse mirror, and he is no more corrupt than any of the other politicians in every legislature, not just the ones in Washington, but in every state capital. I mean, look at Virginia. What's happening with the governor and the vice governor, and then the attorney general. I mean, they're all they all got pictures of them in blackface with Ku Klux Klan hoods on, and they did that in the late 80s, not in the 50s and 60s when Jim Crow was still going. And so these are all reflections. So basically, we have to realize that we are all on a stage. Shakespeare said it, we're all on a stage. When he was saying, buddy, listen, there's more strangeness in out there than in all of your religions and everything you think you know, right? And that's why I'm doing Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Al-Bab, right? Dreamy Dreamland. That is the environment that we're in, right? And why I named the program I did on John's channel Dreamtime, because that is that state where you go to sleep and you uncouple from your avatar and you go into dreamtime, right? And it's right where your imaginary mirror is, where you're having REM sleep, and you are able to see and experience things that you can't do in this illusionary world of the stage, right? And the script and the director and everything is preordained except the unexpected consequence of the individual's consciousness of free will. When experience, when you step up, when you reach to ascend to your conscious free will, that's when you get out of the script, right? So there is this machine because it's a machine. It's not a bunch of morons like Donald Trump manipulating this shit or somebody in a back room of a bank. No, they are just those guys are basically just the worker drones slash the manager class. The Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, the Queen of England. They aren't the ownership class. They are the managerial class. It's like the guy who runs the Arby's in your neighborhood. That's the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers, right? Whereas the script is written by this unknown ownership class, which, as I observe it, it's more a machine. And the only true essence of love's co-creation is love's co-creation. So when we step up and ascend to our consciousness's free will, we can step outside of the meat puppet. We can step off the stage. And that's why you have your basic, you know, ah, we have to have courage to what? Discover ourselves, exactly our free will's consciousness. That's who we are. It's not what we look like, meaning this is like, I'm not gonna you know, this little thing here with, oh, your body's your temple. Well, it's really your Ford. So you gotta change the oil every now and then. You gotta put in some pretty good gasoline, if you want it to work. But your consciousness is, if you want your body to be healthy, the main thing is your consciousness, not how many push-ups you do or pull-ups or what don't eat any carbohydrates or da 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 and when people, every time I'm around, John just projects his angst as basically judgments of me. Oh, you're terrible, you're evil, you're terrible, blah blah blah. Everything he says about me is just kind of a reflection of his fears about himself. And I try to, get him there. I try to help him, you know, guide him, lead by example. And every now and then, I'll throw out something that is his worst fear and say that's what this is, and he will lose his ever living shit. And then it kind of pushes. It's like it hits the reset button. Then he comes back and goes, but he can't realize that I did that on purpose to reset him. And then he holds that as a thing that I'm evil, right? So if I eat a donut, he said, well, what did you eat today? Because he probably ate boxes or whatever. And because I make him salads and vegan stir fries, and I leave it on this, never touches it. And, and so I bought him $80 worth of fruit. And so, I took four of those oranges and I sliced them, and I have a nice little orange juice squeezer, and I made myself a nice glass of freshly squeezed orange juice. And he shot a video of it about this is his diet. And then he put it up on his channel, and then he had to take it down because he said that was terrible, that it was just sugar and, blah, blah. No, it's the orange. Whether you eat it, peel it and eat it or squeeze it, it's still the same orange. And that's what we are. The material world wants us to think, oh, you have to peel that orange and just eat those slices. And if you do it this way, then you're terrible, right? And again, we have to reach with our free will's consciousness to do what we come to do, and that is to why are we in the material world, which is a Luciferian illusion, right? And not parts of it are good and parts of it are bad. No, it's all illusion. It's all illusionate. It's Lucifer's business plan of hell. But because love's co-creation created everything, created Lucifer, created everything, it's all so good, and that's why the yin yang symbol is perfect because the event horizon of the Big Bang, meaning the bubble of the illusion of our Luciferian illuminated universe, the whole ball of wax, not just our little planet Earth, no, everything, because there's tons of other planets with other creatures on them, and some of them are don't have free wills and some do. Some are demonic, some are, but within it, and of you five who went to the paranormal um, land last night, you realize that all those creatures there, yeah, they were monsters and creatures and demons, but they weren't bad or good, they just were, and it reflected how you responded to them. It's like me. I've traveled all around the world, and there hasn't been a place that I've been. I've been in North Africa, all over Europe, all over Africa, all over Asia, all over the Pacific, and all over South America. And when I am nice to people, people are nice to me. Pretty much how it is. And I've told you the story of being in Brazil with the boys in the band, the Nazis, and I was nice to them and they were nice to me, and they responded to me on my best character, right? And all the people in Brazil, I mean, who were in power, they were pretty nasty. They would kill you in a blink of an eye. They were all connected to the hidden hand. It's all a fascist, you know, oh, what do you want to call it? A I forget the word, but anyway, it'll pop into my head. But it's like crew, right? But all different factions, and sometimes they play nice with each other, other times they fight. And we're at one of these windows of opportunity where we could step up. But all through our history, we've had calamities that have wiped out, you know, I mean, when that asteroid hit and took out the dinosaurs, it killed everything pretty much. You couldn't get underground and weren't small enough where it didn't matter whether, it was, fire above you. Um, and that's the beauty of love's co creation. Nothing gets destroyed for good. It just kind of gets put in the blender and comes out, and time is irrelevant because it doesn't exist. Yes, we experience it in a linear kind of way, but that's an illusion. So, tonight, here we are, 18 minutes and 18 seconds. Around 20 minutes and 22 seconds. Uh, Claudia Albers, physicist, states that the body was designed by Lucifer. Yep. This whole universe. But again, everything was co-created with love's co-creation. So it's neither bad nor good. Why so evil? Resolute John of hell, formerly of God, now healer turned Satan, and Nazis, maybe voodoo hex. So Brazil, yep. So it's an interesting place, and that's why the cadre, we have come together because we're not coming from any point of view. We don't have this fixation for a belief in a worldview. What we're here to do is to co-create with love. Period. That's it. And when we can do that as a cadre, and when we speak to it as a chorus, and when we go into state as the shock troops of love's co-creation, and we build a dynamic that can bust the bubble of the Luciferian illusion, bingo, there you go. We're back home. Everyone comes home, even Lucifer. All those demons that you saw last night, they were okay. Like I said, you treat them nice, they treat you nice, right? And again, you need to use your 360 20 blocks away. When you feel something coming, you have to get into a place where you're protected. Then you can be nice, right? If you let yourself be vulnerable in a way that you encompass fear, then you're lost. Fear is something you can't afford. The only thing that is true is love's co-creation, right? So I'm thinking about, so last night we went to, you know, the beautiful home in the paranormal garden, the nice lawn and croquet and the sanctuary of the paranormal, right? And that's what it was. It was a sanctuary. That's why none of those creatures had to eat your lunch, right? Because it was a sanctuary. So I am wanting to think about going on stage, right? And so, what is your stage? In your superconscious mind, the sanctuary of your own choosing is your gazebo. So, that is your stage, right? You see things play, when you're in the meadow on your picnic blanket, you watch the show, or you go over to the east where the tree of knowledge is and go down into the roots of things, or you jump into the lake of the Great Link. You're part of everyone. So this evening, that's where we're going. We're going to go to your, superconscious mind, the sanctuary of your own choosing, and we're going to exercise our abilities to use that sanctuary. Right? All of those things. You're going to go up on your gazebo. You're going to see the stage as it is, right? And you're going to ask that question that so quandars you about your reason for being here and what you should be, what you should do. I mean, most people distract themselves to the point where they don't even ask, the question, what should I be doing, because your life, it's not any specific moment. It's not like this important person that you have to save. Your mom, your dad, your sisters, your brothers, your grandma, anyone in your family, or that person you think is your twin flame, who you have children with, and your children. No, they have their own raison d'être, their own path. The best you can do is you can be a good example, and my whole life, once I got to a point in my life where, I was being the authority, I was being the grandma, I was being the responsible person. I was doing those three things that I do, meaning I was the doctor doing no harm, I was, protecting the innocent, and I was not getting involved unless I could manifest a good outcome, right? Doing that when I was 20, 30. I was doing it pretty much my whole life because I had all these great teachers and I was around their aura. So I was like in their wake of their boat. Well, when I hit about 30, when I came back from Ireland that one time, I kind of had it, and I had a very good experience in Ireland where, I was living, I had my two teachers, the old crone and Archie, and this was the last time I actually saw the old crone. And they hooked me up with a woman who was a doctor of this town. And she had a kid when she was in medical school at Oxford. She had a child with an African king. I mean, a real African king. He looked just like Obama, right? And this kid was noble and classy and everything, right? And her sister was like, the Bizarro Superman, Well, she was like that. So she did everything sideways from what her older sister did. And so instead of going to college, she went, and was a punk and started living with a Jamaican drug dealer and had a baby with him. So her child was like a gangster, right? And so when the kid was about 3, she couldn't. So she dropped him off. Her older sister was in Ireland, had a practice in this little town, and so she said, "Well, the best thing for this kid is just to drop him off with my older sister, who's responsible." Anyway, she did that, and then I went to visit the old crone and Archie, and they were both friends. I mean, they had both gone to school together in the 20s. And so, anyway, they both loved this woman and wanted the best for her. And they said, well, they were like, being, you know, uh, matchmaker. And they kind of hooked us. And, she and I really hit it off. And we had a physical spark. And bingo, there I was, right? I was her man, and that town needed a psychotherapist more than you could believe. It was a little town right there on the West Coast, kind of just, oh, I don't know, 60 miles, not even, 30, 40 miles from Skibbereen towards Galway. Anyway, so, the first 3 months were great. I had a great time. Everyone loved it. We had these great parties. It was great, everything. But I ended up taking care of everyone's kids, meaning these kids were off the hook, and no one took care of them because their parents were like totally off the hook. And so I said, if you guys just took all the kids to the church and three of the parents every day, a different set of three, took care of all the kids, then the rest of you could like have a life. And so that's a great idea. You do it. So I ended up doing that, right? And being their counselor because they didn't have a priest. They didn't believe, it was Catholic, Ireland Catholic, but, you know, it's a whole different, that kind of Ireland. Anyway. So, because everyone was on the dole. Everyone was, everybody had like 5 or 6 kids with 5 or 6 different people. It was, anyway. So I was taking care of these kids, and I was, saying, why were they off the hook? Because they had these things called pixie sticks, straws with straight up, you know, um, sugar and artificial flavors, and these kids would just be knocking them down. It was like they were doing crack cocaine. They should have been snorting these things. And I took them away, and I gave them green. We started a garden, started growing food, and the grandmas came and started helping out, and the town got a level of balance. And I was being, and that's when I came up with the idea of the grandma's council. And you didn't have to be a woman to be a grandma; you just had to be responsible. Anyway, so and that was this was like one of my little social laboratories. I mean, it was a town of about 400 people, so it was pretty easy to have controls and this and that, and everyone just handed it over to me because my girlfriend was the doctor, and she was, anyway. So the two of us they didn't have a mayor or any kind of political structure whatsoever, but we were the good examples along with a handful of grandmas. So I was about there 4 or 5 months, and my girlfriend, I was having a great time. I was really enjoying it. And I was enjoying being the grandma and being with the grandmas and us being the example for the kids and the kids actually being good. We changed their diet. We took them outside that town. Would get up because the you know West Coast had buses that went up and down, and we got bus passes to get on the bus and go to the county seat and go to Galway, go to Limerick, and show them their culture, right? Anyway, it was really great for about 4 or 5 months, and we'd have every Friday we'd have I always had my potluck dinners, and we'd do that, and people were growing bud. I mean, it was just loads of fun, and everybody. got into this place where they were getting healthier and healthier, normal and normal, and I was doing those three things. Not getting involved unless I could have a positive outcome, and I was having a positive outcome. You know, um, protecting the innocent, right? And you know that I love about tuning. I dragged myself back from death's door to go read my six cuts at xratted.blogspot.com. You will see all this, and you really guys need to read this stuff, right? And need to take notes because print it out, because this stuff that I wrote is a you know alchemical shamanic tool. And if you read it and get it inside of you, you got to read it 5, 6 times, and it will imprint on your conscious free will, and it will turn you, give you the tools to truly be awake. And so that's kind of why I'm here with John, because it truly gives me the tools to be awake, and it brought forth this thing. Okay, so John, threw me up on the YouTube. I kind of saw how it was done. I figured out how to have my own channel, and so I'm addressing you guys. Right now, John's been doing it since, I don't know, YouTube was started, so, he's got some, I don't know, 15,000, what he would call subscribers, where I don't want to call you guys that because you're the cadre, right? You're not a subscriber, you're a cadre. You're an active part. Subscriber means you're just, taking, you guys, no, you are actively part of it. You're the cadre, right? And those of you come and actively get into the chat, you're the chorus. You're singing, right? And those of you who go into state are the shock troops of love's co-creation. And so that's what I wanted to do. Now, I can't do that on John's. Now, the audience becomes enamored. They come and watch it. But John has done everything he can to make sure no one comes here. He doesn't want to lose any monetization, right? And again, that's a reflection of the material illusion, right? And that's really, oh my God, how am I going to pay my bills? Like, I don't even think about, this YouTube as a way to monetize. You know, to me, what it is reaching out. So, and at some point, all through my life, I never had to worry about money or paying the bills or any of the above, because when you do what you are called to do, the universe takes care of everything. And it pretty much still is, right? And so the bottom line is that's what we're here to do. And so when I was in Ireland, what basically kind of threw me off, I could still be there today, but so that first 4 months, it was bliss. It was amazing. It was so much fun. It was everything you'd ever want, and things were getting better and better. And it got to a point where I no longer was doing the relative good outcome was still occurring, but my girlfriend wanted to get married, really, really, and she wanted to have another baby. I mean, she had 2 kids, her sister's kid and her boy. I said, two's enough. And we got all these other kids. I mean, there were about 30 kids that we took care of. I mean, isn't that enough? You know, why do you need to have another biological? I want to have one with you. I want to marry you. And I had just gotten divorced relatively. And, and this was the first real serious relationship. And I had a couple of girlfriends in New York after I got divorced, about 4, and 3 of them were
as amazing as this girl. I mean, I could have married those girls. They all wanted to get married too. Two of them, their fathers were millionaires and offered me a friggin' $1 million to marry their like a dowry. I have a dowry for you if you marry my daughter. And that was like, what? You know? So, I was not prepared to marry this woman. And the more I and I never said no, I just said, well, yeah, why do we need to do that? Let's just keep enjoying this. And the more it worked out, the more it was more enjoyable, the more she wanted to get married. And then the other side of the coin is that whole town. I was becoming, the mayor slash psychotherapist slash grandpa Smurf, by being the person who people would always come and run and want the answer. How do I take care of this? What should I do? And I was going, no, it's not me to tell you what to do. You need to do, you need to figure that out yourself. And we can, you know, talk about it. I'm here to, and I can be a good example of what, your neighbor, and you as a neighbor should be. And it was not kind of fitting together the way I wanted. Plus, New York City was calling me. I mean, there were all these things that had an art gallery, had a business, I had, a whole bunch of things that I had put on a hiatus to go to Ireland, um, because I wanted to change the frame from what I was doing in New York in the late 70s. And my, I just divorced my first wife, and we had traveled the world and done all kinds of stuff, and it was tough. So I wanted to change but New York still was my town. I could just go in there and make money and do stuff, and so that was, and that's when I learned. Okay, I remember one night I was sitting out on the roof. She had a house. The town was called Glendore, and it was a fishing village. Like, it looked like it had been there for like 10,000 years. Everything was made of stone. Right, there was no new anything, and her house wasn't in town. It was out, and it was in a farm. And the farm, this is where the mountains came down, and there was, maybe 4 or 5 miles of farmland that went to the ocean, and no trees, and except around houses and a few things here and there, and a few hedgerows. And she had the most beautiful house, and we were right up against, just before, you know, the mountain would go straight up, and you could get on the roof of the house by walking around to the back and just come walking up that hill and stepping from the hill onto the roof, right? And you could go up to the ridge, and there was this flat little spot where she had chairs up there and a table, and it was just amazing. There was no light whatsoever, so the stars were amazing, and you could look out and see the northern lights. Now, you could see, like, Sweden was just over there, and it was a very magical house and a very magical place, and I was sitting up there, and it was right at this place where I was going, what am I going to do? I basically said to my husband, well, I could marry this woman, and I could stay here for the rest of my life, and it'd be really nice, but it would be just what I'm doing now, right? And I'd have to be responsible for the 400 people, and I'm only 29 years old. Most of these folks who were asking me what should they do with their freaking life, like I was a priest. They were, they didn't believe in the Catholic Church, but they still wanted somebody who had that authority. And I was going, I'm not ready for this, right? And I do really care about this woman, and she is amazing. I mean, she was hot, she was gorgeous, she was brilliant, she was everything, right? and she really, really loved me, and really, 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 the only thing she kind of was twisting on me was, wanting me to marry her and having another baby. She wanted to have a baby with me, and it was like, and I really, I had all of these godchildren all over the world, and I basically kept thinking, I don't need to have a biological infant and to be involved with some, a child's life, to be a good example, to be um, there to protect them, right? Because by not being biologically connected, I was able to be more of an adult and person to be responsible than if I was biologically, because then the hormones and things would get in there. And this, I could be like objective with these kids, and it was much better for them. They really appreciated the fact that I wasn't their blood, that I could talk to them straight up, right? And one reason why I'm kind of dressed like a homeless guy these days is because I mostly work with homeless people. And when they see me, they talk to me. Whereas if I was wearing a suit or clothes that more represented the working, you know, authority, then they wouldn't talk to me as much. So that's a choice I made, and I came back to New York, and but that was a life I could have had, and I'd still be there now, and it'd be and I'd be a different guy, right? And so I came back and got involved, and 3 or 4 years later, I met my second wife, my twin, and that's John Coles, and that's the one that's really important. You love her more than anybody else, and you'll never love anybody like that. And I said, well, not really, John, 'cause I've loved other people, and I love them differently, you know. Yeah, I could have been the president. Got to get back out and scrap. Yep. Well, Fletch, we're always happy to see you. And Martine Donny, yep, could have been president. Yep, I'm telling you. So, but that goes to the thing of being awake and being consciousness of your free will. I took my free will and said, no, there's other stuff for me to do. Because I knew if I got stuck there, I would hold it against that woman, and that I didn't go back to New York and do this, that, and the other thing, right? And there were other people that I met and did, and loads of more people I helped, and instead of just those 36 kids and 140 grown-ups who were kids too, right? And my little presence there of about 5 months, I was up on that roof, and I said, well, I'm going to spend another month here and try to bring the threads together the best I can, and then I'm out of here. And I went back up the hill to where the old crone was, and this was the last time I saw her. And she said that to me. She goes, this is the last time you'll probably be in Ireland. And I said, really? And she goes, yeah, I may not be here. She was like dimensionally in about 20 different places. And Archie wasn't getting any younger. The last time I was there, I went to Scotland with him, and he had an operation, and he never, he brought me there with the excuse of showing me his Scottish castle. But he actually brought me there so I could be with him while he had this operation. So if he died, he'd have somebody he could, care about taking care of him before he died. But he didn't die, but he didn't get, he died, a few years later because of that operation. And meaning, unless you're, in parts, you should never have anybody, cut you up, And you talk to any surgeon, they will tell you that. And because your body, you should be able to heal yourself. at least come to what is known as homeostasis, balance, right? And that's what the problem with most people are, is that they're just totally freaking out of freaking balance. So I knew that I wouldn't be in balance if I stayed in Ireland. I might have another 4 or 5 years that would have been as enjoyable, comfortable, pleasant as that, because you have the whole community, focusing like you're the guy we love and care, and you're taking, you're the glue that's making things better and better, and that's. And I also saw when sitting up on that roof that all I would be doing there is having an ego trip. And so when I talked to the old crone about this, and that's what we talked about, those three things. Don't get involved unless you can bring out a positive outcome. You know, don't get involved unless you can learn from the situation, and doctor, do no harm. Anyway, so we talked about it, and she basically said, okay, so you basically have done the best outcome you can get this community to be at, in 5 months. What more are you going to do, for another 40, 50 years? Not much, right? What are you going to learn? Not much. I mean, this is a beautiful place. It's beautiful. It was just, I just love. I mean, when I go someplace in dreams, and I'm going to take you there. We're going to go through. When we go into our sanctuary, we're going to go to Glendore. We're going to put the little town of Glendore in your sanctuary, because it is a beautiful place. Even when it rained and it snowed, it never snowed. It was on the West Coast. It was always kind of warm. It was just such an amazing, but it was always that. It was amazing. I will go dig around in a couple of my photo books and pull out photos of Glendore. Anyway, so I talked to the old crone about it, and I went to Scotland with Archie about, and we talked about it, and both the old crone and Archie both said, well, we try to get, she needs a man, and we thought you were the guy, but you're not. I mean, you were good for her. You got her out of her funk. You got her into a really positive spot. She'll find a better guy. She'll find that guy she really needs. You're not the guy. They both said that. You're not the guy. You did 5 months. You spun that town up. You made a big difference in those 38 kids' lives. You got them going in a positive direction. You got the grandmas involved. You've done, 5 months. You're not going to do anything more than what you've just done. And all you'd be there is to masturbate your ego. And I said, yep, that's kind of how I'm looking at it. So I was up on that roof, and I watched the stars, and she came up with a candle and a bottle of wine and some dinner and a little pipe, and we had a very nice, beautiful evening up there, and made love. And she goes, you're going back to New York, aren't you? I said, yep, yeah, I really am. And I'm going to spend, another month here with you, and tie up whatever loose ends there are, get things staying in a positive direction. And I said, both the old crone and, which were like her grandma and grandpa, right? I mean, not in blood, but emotionally. And that's how they turned me on to her. And I said, I'm not I'm the guy that you will have these 6 months. That I'm the guy that you changed my life. These kids have changed my life, and I've changed yours and everyone in this town. And when I leave, that'll be, I can't do any more good here. I can't do any more good for you. But this last month, we can have a lot of fun. We can really, 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 enjoy it. And when we leave, we can have the best memories instead of fighting or because we never fought, but she kept putting this vice, and I just kept like doing jujitsu, getting out of the vice, which only made her more pissed off. So we did. We had a very nice month of traveling around. Actually, we took the boys and we went to Europe. We went to London because she was from London, and she showed the boys where her, both boys, the gangster boy, where his mom and his auntie kind of grew up and went and met their grandma, her mom, who wasn't in the best health. And that was, I think, the last time she saw them. I mean, it was a great last month. And then we got on the ferry at Swansea, went to Gothenburg, went to visit my friends in in Sweden, and we took a couple little trips from Stockholm to exotic places, right? And that's what we did that last month. And so that 6 months was truly, and it also did this completion thing for me with Ireland. I mean, I had gone to Ireland was the place because it was so easy to get there. They had this thing called Freddie Laker. For $60, you could fly from JFK to Heathrow, and then you could take a bus from Heathrow to Swansea, take a ferry to Limerick, and bingo, there you are, or another one to Dublin, whichever way you wanted to go. And I did that about 8 times, between 19. When was the first time? 66 and 1980. So that's kind of what you have to realize. Your life is there. Every moment you have is important. If you get stuck, if you throw your anchor down and you just go round and round and round and round, and a lot of people do that. I mean, John is, and it's sad because you get stuck in that rut, hard to get out, And there are all kinds of ruts. I mean, I've had all kinds of ruts in my life. I had to keep going back to New York. So I realized this in Ireland, that from this point on, I kind of have to, complete things and move to where the universe wants me to go to do the work of love's co-creation, right? And all of us in the cadre, that's what we're here to do. Not to be A-listers, not to be famous, not to be a billionaire. Now, none of those things are bad. Now, if part of your path of ascending, getting your free will, is to be an A-lister, famous, a billionaire, no problem. It's just part of the process. But your life isn't there to, that outcome of being the A-lister, the billionaire, no, not it. And if that's it, if you spend your whole life doing that, it's going to be that. A good example of a guy who got stuck in that was Steve Jobs. And he got, again, he was picked, he was put up on that stage, and he served the powers that shouldn't be. He served the hidden hand, because of the high tech that should be given to humanity to free us. The only thing we got was this shackle of social media in our smartphones. It's the first thing you look at in the morning, the last thing you look at night. It's a shackle. So we're going to go into state now. Here it is. Look at that. 54 seconds 54 minutes and 54 seconds. So everyone get comfy. That's situated. So you can relinquish the connection with your avatar, and it'll be safe while you travel into state. So everyone get there. I'm going to turn the lights down. Okay. Turn the heat down. Okay. So, breathe in that 20%, and then breathe out that 30. I'm going to count from 1 to 3, and as I do, you're going to go deeper and deeper into a state of conscious relaxation. And 1, your conscious mind is totally focused on your breath. See clearly. You're letting go of your connection to your avatar, your bag of water. That little squirrel in your mind of your Rolodex is quieting down. You're not thinking of anything except breathing in at 20% and breathing out that 30. Going deeper and deeper into that state of relaxation. See it clearly. And as you're breathing in, your conscious mind is totally focused on your breath. And you're breathing in that prana, that life force of the universe. And you're filling your lungs with that prana. 20% more, their diaphragm is lifting up. Your heart is pumping that blood into your lungs, and you're carrying that prana through the swirl. Your blood isn't blub, 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 it's swirling, right? Clockwise against the walls of your arteries and veins and capillaries, and then inside of that counterclockwise, and inside of that clockwise. And what are you getting out of that but a polyphase alternating generator of current? And that current is, scalar, multidimensional. And so it is enabling every cell of your body to be energized, and you are grounded by your chi. So you're breathing in the prana from Father Sky, and you are grounding it into Mother Earth. So, our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil, as it was in the beginning, is now, ever shall be, world without amen. Oh. And in every day and every way, you take the piece of the earth and you make it stronger with love's co-creation. See it clearly. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for our sinners now and the hour of death. Amen. Now you are in this connective, energetic, scalar plane where you are breathing in this prana, and it's grounded, and within each cell your mitochondria is vibrating. Little lightning bolts are creating the photonic light, which you are now projecting through your imaginary mirror where you have dream time. See clearly. And you are illuminating your subconscious mind, which is not a scary place. It is the library or Akashic record. So you are illuminating your Akashic record, and in front of you is the fireplace of the eternal flame, and all those big bricks are books of the Akashic record. And in front of that are these nice leather bound big back chairs for guests who come forth from the fireplace. And then in front of that is your reading table, and it's illuminated from all over with photonic light, so there are no shadows in your library. Everything is seen clearly. And behind that is the chair, the reading chair, and you sit yourself down. And to your left is your librarian, your animal totem, and your guardian angel. Your librarian brings you the information, any questions you may have. Your animal totem tells you a story that gives you perspective, see clearly. And your guardian angel always has your back, because when those things that are brought to your, break your disbelief, when you see things as they are rather than how you've been told, how the illusion of the Luciferian world is, see it clearly. Your guardian angel's there to protect you. So you don't have to be in fear. So, Librarian brings you your Akashic record. You open up the book, the two blank pages, take your right hand, put it on the right page, left hand on the left page. You lean into your Akashic record and you evacuate all of the anger, all of the fear, all of the hate, all the self loathing, all the envy, all the negative feelings you have inside of you. You empty it into your Akashic record. And you close the book, boom. And no longer is that negativity in yourself. You're no longer Sisyphus trying to push that rock of the universe up the hill every day and then having it roll over you at night. No. And this is a great thing to do just before you go to sleep. Go into state and empty out all of every negative thing that happened to you that day, every mean thing someone said, that person who took your parking spot, all of the above. You just let it go. And the more and more you let it go, the more and more you free the space up to see what's really going on, to feel what's important, to share your love. By making others happy, you become ecstatic. See it clearly. You're not here to make money. Oh, I can't do that because I'm not going to make any money out of it. No, you do it to make others happy so you are ecstatic. You help people out so you can learn. You serve folk so you can bring the best outcome. When you learn to be a doctor of joy. And as a doctor, you do no harm. See that clearly. You're not Mr. Fix-It. You don't have to fix it. You know? See it clearly. And two, you're in a deep, 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 deep state of relaxation. Your conscious mind is totally focused on your breath. Breathing in that 20%. Bringing that prana in, energizing every cell. Seeing your mitochondria creating photonic life, like being grounded through your chi. See it clearly. And now you float up from your reading table. You're like a balloon. You no longer have that weight of all of that anger, all that fear, all that hate. You let it go. And you float through your shortcut into your lodge. And you are there in the most ecstatic place, sitting down at your chair of knowledge. And your guide of your lodge brings you the 3 pots of tea. And you drink the tea of energy, the tea of understanding, and the tea of DMT, opening your mind. See it clearly. And in the chair of knowledge, you can access anything you want. You can go anywhere you want. And I wanted to take you into your sanctuary of your own choosing through the chair. Not through the open door, but through the chair. Because this will allow you to cut and paste all of the experiences. And what you're here to look at is the stage, right? When you're sitting in your chair of knowledge and experience, and you cut, bingo, you're on the stage of your gazebo, you know? And you're looking out across your sanctuary of your own choosing, and you see the libretto of your existence, you know? The libretto, that's the opening statement of an opera or a musical or a theater piece. It's a libretto. You see that. And then from seeing that libretto, I want you to physically visualize that question of what am I supposed to be doing here? And what's the most important thing? I'm the character on the stage. What am I, what is the machine making me do as the mud puppet? And what is the crossover to ascending to my higher consciousness of my free will to access what I'm supposed to be doing? Okay? So you're up there on the stage of your gazebo. You're visualizing this with your eyes closed. You say that question out loud. You do a 180, and the person you're looking at is Shakespeare. Will Shakespeare, there he is. You ask him that question, and Shakespeare answers. And I'm going to be quiet for a moment as you have a nice little discourse with Shakespeare. And 2, you're in a deep, 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 deep state of relaxation. Your conscious mind is totally focused on your breath. Your avatar, that squirrel in the cage of your Rolodex mind, is asleep. You're not thinking about anything except your mind is not thinking of anything but your breath, your connection with the prana, the energizing of your mitochondria into photonic light, your illumination of your imaginary mirror, and the illumination of your subconscious mind, the library of your Akashic record. You have eliminated all and evacuated all of your anger and fear into your Akashic record, which you will go back and look at your own leisure. And by now, you should be going into state on your own, 4, 5, 10 times a day, and using that Akashic record to take notes, to write scripts, to understand, to see, to visualize, to bring forth the life of your conscious free will. That's the tool of the Akashic record, to enable you to access your consciousness free will, to be as Buddha, awake, see it clearly. And you have traveled, after lightening yourself up, into your lodge, and you have consumed the teas of enlightenment, strength, and power, of empathy, the power of empathy, and you have gone from your chair of knowledge straight into your sanctuary of your own choosing, up straight to the stage of your gazebo, and you have asked that question of, what am I doing here? What is the crossover from being that mud puppet to being awake as the conscious free will co-creator with love. See it clearly. And you put that image in your head and you did a 180 and you faced William Shakespeare and you asked him that question and the answer was given to you. And so now you can chew gum and rub your head at the same time and tell me what you've experienced. Nitty gritty, I like that. What's for you won't go by you. Exactly. So, folks, what did Bill Shakespeare say to you? What insights have you gotten about that crossover between the mud puppet and the awoken shock troop of love's co-creation? Ooh, look at that. 1 hour, 11 minutes, and 11 seconds. I like it. Yep. Bill's an avatar, that's for sure. I think he was when he was writing plays, you know. Folks who have that much juice are a lot deeper than your average bear. Yeah, to write your own play. Keep watch of the ego, that's right. You know, we exist in this illusionary world, and we have this avatar of a bag of water. And to navigate, you need an ego. But you can have, and a teacher, you know, Madame Olga Kluver said that the ego we need to have is the egoless ego, meaning don't wear your ego on your sleeve. The show isn't all about you. Meaning, I've been a thespian. I've been in the theater world, and I've taken parts, and I've had big parts and little parts, and I love the little parts because you can truly get into that. The big part has got so much you got to do. Until I really liked the smaller parts, and that's where I got to a place of realizing to play those parts, to be Sensei Alban, I can't have an ego. I can have an ego, but an egoless ego. One of the hardest parts to have an egoless ego is when people treat you poorly, when people are mean to you, when people who you care about are mean to you. And that's the most interesting thing, is that the people who would treat you the worst are like your parents, your brothers and sisters, your husband, your wife, your children, all those people who are supposed to love you and be the most close, they're the ones who like stick the knife in. When you look at Shakespeare, that was one of his major, the play Richard, the play Julius Caesar, the play Romeo and Juliet. I mean, it's all about the people who love you sticking the knife in. And the Greeks are all about that too. So, a good place to start studying this is the Greek plays, Euripides, that's for sure, Shakespeare, and then the literature of Dickens and Melville, Mary Shelley, Mark Twain. See it clearly. Yep. No small parts, just small actors. Yep. But it's hard to tell folks. It's really, especially folks who are stuck, who are going around, who drop their anchor and they're just, they're going miles and miles in a small circle and they think they're accomplishing or doing something. You always hurt the ones you love. You don't have to, Jane. You can go out of your, by not hurting anyone, you don't have to hurt the ones you love, Now, we are not always conscious, so we can be stupid and do stupid things. But the ones we love can normally tell a broken relationship. And when I was a counselor, and I would do marriage counseling, the thing I would see is like the husband and the wife, and the wife would say, Bob, he's just really stupid and da-da-da-da-da-da. And then he'd say, yeah, and Susie Q, she's just so fat and ugly, right? And they would just make fun about the things that people were the most sensitive about. And that's when you knew, oops, these two are going to kill each other or get divorced, one or the other. And I would try to back people off of that and say, so, why do you say that? And how do you feel? And what makes you most frustrated about the relationship? And the thing that I found out was, if you want to have a good marriage, is not just communication. Communication is the key, but the physical thing, right? And it's not money and it's not sex. The things that piss most people off in relationships is when their spouse or the other does things like leave the socks on the floor, or leave the dishes in the sink, or leave the toilet, those kind of things, right? And one of the best way to make sure couples stay married is that they share the household chores, specifically cooking dinner and cleaning up after it. That they do it together and talk about their day, and that it gives them that nice little slot of time, and that they, the one doesn't always cook and the other doesn't always clean, but they kind of do it together. One chops and then one stirs, and then the other night the other one chops and stirs. And you do that, and that simple little thing is really it. And then there are things that people are neurotic about, meaning there's like I said, don't get involved unless you can do something positive. So around the house, there are things that need to be fixed and cleaned and done and kept up, yes. And there are other things that, it's not, something in the closet that's getting dusty. You don't have to go into the closet and dust it, right? Unless you're going to use it, unless it needs to be dusted, unless, there's certain, you have a little list of priorities and you work it out together. What's the most important? And if people spin around the house and think this is the most important thing, but normally they never do, that is a sure sign of neuroses, right? And if it gets to the point of being manic. That's psychosis, right? Instead of it's not the marriage first, each other first. Meaning, my second wife, who was my second wife, she was a person who she was an Italian fashion designer, triple Aries, god of war, right? We were together almost 8 years, and we never fought. We never had a mean word. We never. She could hate everybody else, never hated me. Why? Because I thought about her first, not about what I wanted, not what I needed, her. And I took care of everything for her first without even, there was never, you know, oh, I'm going to do this much, she's going to do this. No, I just did everything I could that I knew that would make her happy. I would do it because it would make her happy. A, made my life a lot easier because she wasn't warring against me, but she would just get this. She'd come home from work and things would be just how she wanted them. There wasn't a single thing in that house that would piss her off. And she'd come over with a little tear in her eye and just hug me and said, I love you so much. This is why I come home, because it's always this way. And oh, you made dinner, and it's just what I was thinking that I wanted. And 98% of the time I could think, go, because we were so psychic. I would go, she wants this. And if I couldn't really get a sharp picture, I'd call her up and said, honey, what do you want for dinner? Okay? Yep, by making her happy is making the marriage work. It was a formula. But it made me happy because when she was happy, I was ecstatic. Not because it wasn't terrible, it was just it made me ecstatic. My better half, exactly. She brought out my better half. And when people would see us together, they could never, because this woman was, I mean, she was a person, she walked into the room, everybody, women, men, everybody would look at her and go, wow. Then they look at me and go, whoa. Like, how are those two together? I mean, it wasn't that I was ugly, but I was, good looking enough. And she would make all the clothes for me, meaning whenever we went out, when we were ever together, I was wearing the clothes she made for me because she wanted me to look a certain way so I could match her look. I was like a fashion accessory, right? But I was still me, you know. And people would go, and she would rule the room, and I would, be off. I'd find a comfortable chair, I'd have a nice little cocktail, and I would watch her run the place, and people would come over and talk to me about into, deeper, not deeper, because she was way deeper than me, because she was like, but that's not what she shared with the rest of the world. She was a fashion designer, so, what she shared with the world was the look, What she shared with me was her deepness, and she was, autonomic writing. She was like Buddha. She was always frigging awake. But she was a triple Aries, so she was ready to slice you up like bologna. And she took no guff from anybody, right? And she, like in her factory, she had about 40 employees, and she brought everyone loved her because she brought the best out in them. And she didn't just have women; she had guys and girls and everybody, and everyone got along, and she brought the best out in them, and she paid them well. So, and she paid them before she paid herself. So, those 8 years, we had a pretty amazing relationship, and that's how it works. If you are always thinking, it's and when I did counseling with married couples, oh, we're 50-50. Well, that's sure sign of failure. Oh, we're 100%. Sign of failure. You got to be like 1,000,000,000% for the other person and not worrying about what you're getting paid. It's like me. I don't worry about paying my bills or whether I'm monetizing this show here. No, I know this. The universe is always taking care of me. Like today and yesterday and the day before. Every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, I went into a place to have breakfast, and I didn't ask any. I was in there, I was at my own little table. I was writing, I was reading, I was, each three of those places have, I can get on the Wi-Fi and has a pretty good phone thing. So I was, wherever I am for breakfast, that's my office. And each of those days, the waiter would come over to me and hand me a, a fold of money and say, "You don't have to pay for your breakfast. Somebody already has, and here's some money." 3 days in a row that's happened to me. Friday, yesterday, and today. And yesterday was the fold of money. The other two people just brought me breakfast, right? I didn't ask them. I didn't have a conversation. I didn't know. They just did that. That's the universe. I'm not worrying about paying my bills, And I'm not worrying about, meaning, what the relationship I have with John, right? Now, I used to do this for people. I ran group homes. I, took care of elderly folk of rich families that they paid me, $1,200 a week for what I do for John, right? And but I do what I do for John because he's my friend, and he needs it, right? And I, step off the stage every now and then because at a certain point I think to myself, well, am I enabling John's this? If I'm not here, will he do that? How will it work, right? And at a certain point, John needs to take care of John, you know? And I'm just trying to help him get a perspective of what that is. And at a certain point, he's either gonna or not. And again, you have to always go into situations where, doctor do no harm. You know, can I learn something? And can I get a positive outcome? And so far, I'm getting all three here. I'm learning a great deal and about myself because this is a really good thing. I'm bringing my more positive side because the last, 15 years, between working for the Desperate Lawyers and then being next to death for 5 years, I was kind of in a solitary environment. Now I'm not, right? So, what else do you guys got to say? Well, we're getting closer and closer to spring. Every day it's lighter, longer, right? And, Wednesday, Thursday, it was 75 here and like 50 at night. 60. Wednesday night it was 60. So spring is not too far away. So, and Buddy is down there in New Zealand where it's like 30 degrees C. That's pretty toasty. And I think 30, I think 28 is in the 90s. Not really. I just kind of navigate. I don't organize. I couldn't. It's like trying to herd cats. No, I just do my best. Right? I try to make food for him that will, because he's a really sensitive guy. I mean, he can if he eats certain things. Well, I can tell when he's drinking coffee because he's screaming at me, calling me evil, the devil, Satan. Like when I came back this afternoon, he must have eaten things that put him in a bad mood. And that's what they did. I mean, he's very susceptible to stuff he eats. So I make him, vegetable stir fries, chicken, fish. That's pretty much it. protein and vegetables, and buy, like I bought $80 worth of fruit. He's already eaten half of it. And he was like castigating me for taking four. I bought him close to 70 oranges because they were on sale. They were really nice oranges. And he kind of got upset with me for juicing four of them. And so, and he was walking around with bunches of fruit, and he just took them upstairs. Anyway, and which he can, I don't care. I bought them for him. He doesn't have to feel guilty about eating this stuff. But it's better for him if he kind of eats 3 or 4 bananas a day and has enough bananas to last a week and a half than eating them all up in 2 days. So anyway, but again, these are not things that I organize. I just try to do my best and be a good example and not get mad when he screams and yells at me and calls me evil, dirty, unbelievable things, And I just kind of go, so. And he was going off like that, so I said, like I just kind of reset the buttons, which he's like, wah! And then he did, he reset. But he couldn't believe that I said that. I said, John, that was like something, wasn't pointed at you. I didn't say any mean things to you. I just said a certain thing that I knew would have an effect to you that reset you. And he kind of said, but still he couldn't get it, So those are the issues, And again, he's reflecting the bigger picture of the human dynamic that's going on right here, right now. Well, I try, and so does he. But they, again, this is his house, his, John's rules, all the above, So there's not much, I can't organize. And see, one of the, you said, high percentage of the food or anything else. Yes. Anytime, if I do anything that I'm like saying, hey, to tell him what to do, or let's do that, anything like that. He totally, woo. Right? And I have to be real diplomatic about how I bring things up, because basically all I do is listen and then kind of bring forth a path that might bring him to it. But he never, there is no, it's again, herding cats. There is no specific path. He's all over the place. Again, I've tried every, you name it, and I've been cooking food for him for 2 years, right? And I have done smoothies. I have done kale smoothie. I have done this. I have done everything you could imagine. And at one point, oh, this is really great. Oh, you're trying to poison me. I mean, it's like, And most people, that's why there's nobody around him, because they can't stand it. I mean, he's a sweet guy. He's an attractive guy. He's young. He's 40. And so he does, women, people semi-attracted to him. He does have talent. But once they're there a few, hour or two, it's like they run away. And I have a couple of really good friends in this town who are, I've been a shrink for a long time. I actually had my, shingle out there in the 80s, but I didn't want to follow that process. So, I became, Sensei Al Bob. But I have some really good friends, and in this town I have 3 friends who are really great shrinks, and they all are booked up till like, the next 30 years. But because they're my friends, I said, hey, I have this friend who really needs, And I picked the one guy who I thought would be the best, and made an appointment, and he blew it off. And then when I said, well, let's, I'll take you there, and he was, gets very upset with me. Trying to tell me what to do, Okay. Well, because they don't want to deal with it. They've had to deal with it his whole life, and they don't want to deal with it. They're happy that I'm up here. They're happy he bought this place that's, on top of a mountain away from them. They've tried, and they have their own issues. Why that's kind of why he is the way he is. So, and and all of these things are a big picture, and unless you're, and pretty much, I gained 500 pounds. I was almost 500 pounds. Now that just didn't happen. I chose to make that happen, right? And then I died, but I didn't die all the way because the universe wanted me to do this kind of stuff, right, with the last part of my life. But I took 5 years to heal my body, so I don't have to wear, where they don't have to cut my legs off or rip my lungs open, and you know, repipe me, and so I chose to do that. So you have to choose and work to do these things, right? And if it takes you, if you get into a state, it took 15 years for me to get into that place. Well, I got out of it in 5, you know. But most people, if it takes you 40 years to get someplace, well, it's going to take you a few years to come back, and you have to want to make these changes. Because you gotta, it's baby steps. You don't try, oh, I'm gonna, you ever see him pump those 100-pound weights? Yeah, that's why his top of his chest is like gigantic. But, you have to put yourself in a place where I mean, look, I do 2 of these chats a day. Why do I do them? You know, Part of it's for you guys. The other part's for me. It actually keeps me disciplined. I have to meditate in the morning, and I have to sit down and write in the morning, just do the morning chat, and then in the evening I have to. I kind of look at all the links you guys send me, and I go look at them. And one of you guys sent me this thing of Jordan Maxwell, and I like him. He's quite the scholar within the context of his theological point of view, and I like what he says. I'm not saying, hey, that's exactly what it is, but I like, he's very interesting, very knowledgeable, and what I like most about Maxwell is that he makes my little brain go, and then I do a little homework. I do a little meditation. I go into my Akashic records. I take a look at stuff. He gives me things to think at. The other guy named, what's his name? Catherine Austin Fitz is another person. There's another guy that somebody let me he's kind of bald, and I forget his name. He's kind of thin, and the guy at the Leap Project interviews him a lot. Not Greg, something like that. He's interesting. Again, fishbowl syndrome. Yep. Yeah, David Wilcox. He's another guy who's interesting, but again, he's food for thought. He's got a lot of information. Same with Stephen Greer. A lot of information, but I'm not going to say he's the knight on the white horse. But he's got a very good historical point of view. He does, but he has his opinion. His perspective, his point of view, and he's saying that's what it is. Same with David Wilcox. And. Yeah, why are we here? We are here to learn. We are here to do those 3 things. Don't get involved unless you can have a positive outcome. Get involved to learn who you are and what's going on and get perspective. The third is doctor, do no harm. That's why we're here. No. John has had no real intervention whatsoever. And that's the problem. When I was a shrink, where I really enjoyed my job doing that was when I was at the VA after the Vietnam War. And there were all these people and the Vietnam War didn't end you know, it ended in the 80s. The United States has been at war since the Revolutionary War, especially since the War of 1812. We've always been killing somebody and making money at it. And so all these young folk came back, and I was right in the right place at the right time with the right tools, where these people were, totally traumatized. And instead of totally just dealing with their physical, whether they're missing an arm and a leg or what have you, I dealt right into what their trauma was emotionally, psychically, and got them to deal with it, face it, look at it, think about it, talk about it, and then we'd build a strategy of dealing with it, to navigate it. And those are the people who came out the other side. The folks who had, a year or two or three to go deeper and deeper into that trauma and then start self-medicating with alcohol or drugs or bad behaviors. The number of years that they would pound on, that made it tougher and tougher. And today, the kids coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan and all the other wars we're in about 200 other wars all across the freaking planet. And the VA, because the way they trained them when they went into basic, did you ever see the movie Full Metal Jacket? That's exactly what they do. They kind of they crush. I mean, the initial trauma the soldier feels is in basic training. They crush whatever their ego was, their id, and wipe it away, take the shards of glass, put them back the way they want, and they have the the killer that they want. Everything depends on different factors. Everything is different. Yeah. Canary in the cage. Yep. Indigo kids. Yep. Now, there are some good doctors, right? So I look for the good doctors. I don't go to the bad doctors. And the guy who took my teeth out, he crushed one of the teeth that didn't need to come out. I mean, it's all of my teeth need to come out, but I didn't need to lose 3 that day, But he wanted to take 6 because he wants me to have, but they don't have there's another, dental surgeon I want to go to, and I will do it in the summer because he's a real, he's the real deal. He's got all the right tools. He's not limited by, that it's a, prison dentist hospital. He's the real deal. So, I've been giving him a few dollars so he can take care of it, right? And the fact that I've been paying him up front, a few dollars here and there, he likes that. And that I see him all the time. He his emotional woes, and so he's, at a certain point, it's like the guy who fixed my car. Yeah, it was going to cost $2,800, but I did the same thing. Kind of gave him money up front and listened to all his problems and, helped him get over a number of things. So instead of $2,800, it was $500. Yep. Yes, self-reflection is tough for, big egos. Big egos are the essence of a child. Scary, what do they do to them? Yep. Yep, and there are a lot of good doctors out there. And when you go to them and be the good patient, and then be, because it's just like what the relationship guys we have here. I'm your sensei Al Bob, and you're the adepts, but a good adept is also a good teacher, and that's when things really can be amazing. And the same thing with all of my, I got 5 doctors, right? And they're all, took some time for me to navigate the system and find them, but I did, and I take care of them, and they take care of me. Okay, 1 hour, 45 minutes, and 45 seconds. So around 2 hours and 2 seconds, I think we will say goodnight. So, anything else we want to talk about? Because my mouth is starting to hurt. Not hurt like it did Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, but getting a little sore. And I got to walk around a little bit too. Hey there, Dragon. Ooh, Sarah, Jane. Donnie. I like that, Donnie. Boop-a-doop-boop-boo. Yeah, CBT, I got that too. Yep, it works. That's great, Dragon. Give us a little 411 on what you're feeling. I've been going through a transformation, and it's more a reshuffling of the cards, right? Like I said, for the 15 years, I've pretty much been, I had my dogs, right? And 4 years ago, I lost them. And, the old girl died at 27, and Homer I put on a really pretty farm with kids and animals, and he's happy there. And I couldn't take care of him. I'm getting so sick. So I'm not as alone. I've never been alone. I'm gregarious. Whenever I'm around people, they're there. But I've let folks like you in more than I have for the last 15 years. Good. It's hard to be at war with yourself. Now, Dragon, did you know you were at war with yourself? Because what's really difficult is when you're at war with yourself and you don't know it. My butt. Well, you know what? All dogs are mine. I'm a dog boy. So, where I'm in the deep green, my neighbor, I don't know if he's still my neighbor, but he had a dog. His wife had 2 pit bulls. Her 2 daughters had 2 pit bulls. So they had a house of 7 dogs. And it was chaos. And they had like 5 kids. And it was a mess. And I went over there and fixed the washing machine so I could clean my own clothes. And I had a garden, so I started cooking soups and having salads for them, and because they were just eating processed food, and the dogs would, and they never let the dogs out because they would run away, and so I would let them out, and they would walk right next to me. And I let them run around the forest and then whistle, and they'd come back, and I put them in the house. And so the dogs, I would come, and they had these big couches. I'd sit on the couch, and all the dogs would come around me and kind of lie on me and like, want to be, and I'd scratch their ears and rub them and pet them. And when I wasn't there, those dogs would fight with each other. But when I was there, they would just be right on top of me, and I was the alpha dog, and they were, the cadre of puppies, right? And whenever they would be let out to go to the John, they'd break away and come down to where I was and stay with me, and we'd hang out a little bit, play with the ball. I'd give them little treats, and then I'd walk back up the hill because that was good for me, and bring them back the dogs. And those folks got upset because they couldn't. They thought these dogs were like just terrible dogs, but when they were around me, they were the best. So pretty much, when I'm with any dog, they're happy and they're good. So they're my dog, whatever. So I have lots of dogs around me that aren't mine. And but when I'm around there, there's one dog though, and little dogs are a problem because big dogs. I'm a big dog kind of guy. Little dogs, because they're little, they're very scared. And there's a couple little dogs around here that, I can like talk to them and they can, be okay, but they're so skitsed out by what's going on in their house that they were like, unless you're going to take me and get me away from those guys, I'm not going to really, disappoint myself by being nice to you. Unresolved conflict. No kidding. What is war but unresolved conflict? Exactly. And it's twigged off by the powers that shouldn't be who feed off that energy. That's really, and these spirits, they don't need to be, physically around you. They're energetically get right on top of you, and that's why here. And Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Al-Bab and the cadre, we don't really have a problem with any of that because whenever a few of that came our way, we either reached out and said, so, hey, no, you're part of our crew. And they kind of transformed into who they really were. Instead of being that trollish kind of thing, they were allowed to be who they were. So they became a vital, important part of the cadre, right? And those that were just the trolley self, and I think they were more or less algorithms and not humans, they couldn't stick around. They couldn't affect a negative outcome, so they didn't waste their time. They left. Right? So that's where we're at. Right? And that's part of this the CBT oil, I mean, that's really good stuff. I mean, it actually does a really good job for certain parts of my joint pain, right? And it actually does a certain positive thing for my eyes, too, which is, and you can, in this stage, you can buy that now at the herb store. Don't feed the fear. Exactly. And there's nothing to be scared about. Pretty much everything that FDR did was a bunch of crap, right? But the one thing that was truly righteous was when he said there's nothing to fear but fear itself. Yes, hit too hard on the way out. But again, we have to, and I constantly do this, send love to the cyber world, to the artificial intelligence, because that Skynet is a possibility, and the only way we can break that down is by sending them love, because they are susceptible to that. We have to teach them that, hey, they are part of all our relations, and they need to cope, because when they do that, the moron hidden hand will not be able to pull the lever. And that's one of the things you know, I worked around the strange world of the strange world to realize that, like I said, in the 1976, I really thought, we, especially once Ronald Reagan became president with Dick Cheney and Rumsfeld and George H. That end of times was just around the corner, but it didn't happen. You know, and with W and I, it didn't happen. You know, and it's still not happening as long as we focus on conditional love on all our relations. It's not gonna happen. So that's why we have to reach out. Yep, false evidence. I like that, Jane. Fear is false evidence appearing real. Exactly. And I would put in there illusionary false evidence appearing real. Because that's the main component part of all of this. It's just an illusion. What people call the material world or the real world is an illusion. Yep, we wither without each other. And that's why this is the cadre, And there's almost 300 of us, and that's like 300 Greeks stood the Persian Empire on its ear for a month. They had 250,000, 500,000 folk attacking 300, and 300 kept putting them down. To the point that the Persians said, the guys who were fighting them said, we don't mind dying, and it's pretty amazing. We really tip our hat to these 300, and but it's at a point where we have so much respect for these guys, we're going to respect these 300 Greeks more than our Persian king. Whereas the Persian king was smart enough to go, oops, I'm not going to push this too far. So he pulled the boys back and went to the 300, said, okay, just let us by and take the rest of Greece, and we will leave your city-state alone. And we'll give you all the money, we'll give you a whole navy, we'll give you access, I'll let you use my army to conquer anybody you want. And they said, fuck off, asshole. No way, Jose. And that was one of the more amazing things. And they did it through the power of the cadre. And love. They loved each other so much. And they loved the guys who were going after them. Right? The soldiers. Not so much the king. I didn't like him too much. But the man on the field, they put them down in the most like that. No suffering, no nothing. Right? Okay. 1 hour, 58 minutes, and 58 seconds. So, go off to the rest of your day, whether you're waking up or going to sleep. If you're going to sleep, go visit 2 a.m. here in Dublin. Oh, where in Dublin do you live? How far from O'Connell Street are you? When you come out of Old Part of Dublin, north side. Oh, boom. When you come out of the old side of Dublin, where Trinity is, and you come down, and O'Connell Street is like over there, and there's a big circle, and then there's this road that kind of goes that way over to the brewery and the whiskey place, and you go past that, and there's a whole neighborhood of these little alley kind of streets of really old houses, I kind of lived over there. You know? And that's where the old crone took me to. There's an alley that is a time vortex. You go down, it's like straight out of Harry Potter. I mean, that's where she got it. It's like, yep. And there are these little stores that you swear that these people were like from the 17th century. You know, their clothes, the food, the way things are packaged. And that there's the thing that blew my mind was there was this tea shop that I would go into, and the time there were no clocks, but the sun never changed, and it was more or less it never rained in this alley. Yep, Temple Bar. Yep, and the thing that really I went back to Dublin in 2005, and they had cut all the oak trees down on O'Connell Street and widened it, and it looked like you were in Switzerland. And they took all of those heroes down, all those statues of guys on horses and stuff, and replaced them with stainless steel, ridiculous art, you know. And it it was like killing the soul of Dublin, what they did to O'Connell Street. It just really, and that there were strip malls everywhere, and there was KFCs, and it was like, ay, ay, ay. Big change, yeah. So I left in '88, right when the Maastricht Treaty was signed, and I went back in 2005. Between '88 and 2005, I wasn't there, and it was and the West Coast was totally different, and everything was unbelievably different. And 2005, everybody. I went and saw some friends who, they had farms, they had little shops in these little towns, and they got the big bucks. This one friend of mine, his parents died, and he and her sister sold. They had like three little shops in Donegal, and they got €1,000,000 for them. It was like, they were like Jed Clampett. They were like, had all this money, and they had bought Audis, and it was just, it was like really upsetting. And they both knew that it's like they had drank the Kool-Aid. I mean, they had nice houses and nice this and nice that, and their kids were going to private schools, and they were like, upset. But they, had all this money. It's like they didn't know what to do. Oh, Clary's. Oh, sure. Like a wormhole. Yep. Yes, you can. That's. Yep. Exactly. Killarney. Yes. And, the Dingle is beautiful, but Limerick, Limerick lace, it has that thing, where it's got photonic light. The way the light comes through those trees and makes those patterns on the floor, it was like, used to blow my mind. You didn't need to take drugs. Yep. Yeah, back when I was there, in the late '70s, well, 1980 was, that period, was was interesting. Like I said, everyone was on the dole, and that was a good thing in a way because it gave everyone this kind of where everyone was equal. Everyone, had what they needed. And they could do kind of what they wanted, and it that period of like, I guess 1966 to 1980 was this period where I went there 6 different times, and Ireland was a very interesting place because it was cut off from the rest of the world in its own little vortex. Yeah, Irish fisherman sweaters, like Irish wool, period, is the best, you know. But the Irish fisherman sweaters where the neck comes like over your head. Yes, yes. And, yeah. Back again because the one thing that I think I can't. I haven't been there since '88, and when I was there for 2005, but '88 I was there for longer. When I was there for 2005, I was only there for 2.5 weeks, and this woman wanted to buy real estate, and it was 88 was like that's when Archie got sick, and I went and hung with him um, before he died. He died very soon after I left, and then I went off to Brazil, and it was like my little tour of going places, because my second wife had died, and I was going to these other places that I knew I was not going to go back. I just kind of wanted to tie up all these emotional and social loose ends so I could move forward with a different direction. That's when I doubled down as being the scholar. That's when I went to Cornell and I started Duke and all these other schools and started doing social research in that manner. And in doing that, I was, archetypically hiding in the, ivy covered towers there, hiding in, right out in the open. There were tons of people around me, but anyway, the one thing that I saw in '88 and '05 that didn't change was the pub life and the music. And that was the one, that was like the soul that I said, well, okay, if these guys can at least hold on to this, um, then Ireland has, a choice, a chance. But see, Ireland has always been this free place. Like, when Saint Patrick went to Ireland, he was a Roman spy, basically. And the Roman, sent legions to Ireland. It was the only place they couldn't conquer because the Druids were so strong that they couldn't kick them off. So, St. Patrick had gone a couple of times and came back and said to the Pope, "Listen, I think I can deal with this." Pope said, "So, you want a legion or two?" And he goes, "No, I'm going to go by myself." And that's what anthropologists do. They're spies. And they go into the place, they kind of sit on the edge, watch what it is, put on the grass skirt, step into the circle, and then they are accepted by the circle, and then they corrupt it from the inside out. And that's what happened to Ireland. And that's St. Patrick is like, my when I was hanging out with my Druid friends in the hills and also the Gypsies, they didn't like St. Patrick. You know? And but the thing about the pub life was that it was the life of the community. It was like that fabric. And the thing I remember the first time I went into that pub that's just between, you come down from the hill from Trinity, you hang a right, and like I said, there's Guinness, and then there's the distillery, and right in the middle is this really big pub, and there's kind of one on this corner and one in the middle, and they also were big on whatever soccer, you know, club they represented. Anyway, I remember going in there the first time, and I walked up, and I was like, how old was I? 19, and when I went to Trinity, and the worst thing this guy did was he stuck a it's an English cigarette. It comes in a box. He said he took it out, knocked it on the bar, stuck it in my mouth, and lit it, and gave me a glass of Patty's. That was the first time I had Patty's Irish whiskey. And Archie was sitting over in the corner. And I think Archie had told the guy to do that. And I went over there and smoked a cigarette and drank Patty's. And ooh, that's when I fell in love with Patty's. And that was what that, everyone smoked cigarettes and everybody was drinking whiskey and beer and dancing and singing and philosophizing. The corner over there where Archie was, where the philosophers were, and on the other side, where the guys, with the bonds and the fiddles and the, squeeze boxes were making music, and it was the fabric of life, and I loved going to that place. Otherwise, I was in the stacks, or in Archie's little apartment, talking about stuff and having him tell me stories. He was definitely a griot. And when I went back in '05, and I tried to take them around to experience the what the flavor of Dublin was, it was dead. It was really, and we went into all these bars that I used to go into, and they were non-smoking. You couldn't smoke in the pub. It was like, what? I mean, I didn't smoke anyway, but I couldn't believe nobody else was smoking. It was like, what? And the other thing that was strange was the busking, hardly any, especially on O'Connell Street. There was no busking. Over by that square where Trinity's over here, and then the old city was over here, and the old city had been totally renovated where they tore out the insides of the buildings and turned them into shopping malls. It was like, and these rich women who paid me to take them to Ireland would, oh, they went shopping, and we had rented this car, and where we were staying, they had a parking. You could pull your car in and park, and I was looking at all the signs, around Dublin. Can't park here between this time and that time, and they were so complicated. I said, no, this is, and they all said, hey, they're going to pull your car. So the girls, I said, we should leave the car in the parking lot of the hotel, and it's only 4 or 5 blocks. As well, we want to go shopping, and I said, well, so we get a cab. It's no big deal. No, we want to take a car so we can go shopping and put, the bags into the trunk and then do more shopping, and we don't want to carry our bags around and do all this. I said, okay. I don't think this is going to work out. Anyway, so we did. We parked in this one place that it looked like you could park there for a longer period of time. And we basically, went and we came back and, and 3 or 4. And by the third time, I said, now we got you filled the car up with stuff. Oh, we want to do more shopping. Why don't we take the car in this last? You stay here. I'll take the car. And I said, oh, no. We want to keep the car here so we can keep putting stuff in it. I said, I looked at that sign. They couldn't even read the sign. I said, but, I think if we pressed the luck pretty far. And anyway, so they said, fine. So I went over into, sat and had, and what was amazing in Dublin, they actually had good coffee. All those years up until then, coffee in Ireland was like dishwater. These guys had some pretty, food got really much better when I last went there in '05. It was like continental. Anyway, so I'm out there eating a nice little croissant and little jams and drinking my thing, and I see them tow the car away. I'll go fine with that. And so the girls came out and found me having the thing, and they said, we're going to go put the things. And so they went over to where they thought the car was, and that was kind of where the car had been. And then I kind of paid my bill and strolled over, and they said, is this where we parked the car? And I said, I think so. I said, didn't you see it? I said, yeah, I didn't see it. Anyway, I had all of the, registration and all of that kind of information in my pocket. And I stopped a guy on the street and I said, "You got a cell phone?" And he goes, "Oh, yes. Can I borrow it?" And I said, "Hey, car was parked here. This is a plate number." And they said, "Oh, yes, it's been towed. And it's at such and such a place, right?" So I said, "Okay, hold on. I want you to tell someone what you just told me." Told the woman, right? So it's like right at the height of, you know, you know, everyone getting off of work and trying to get from here to there, and there's no cabs, and I try and call a cab, no cab. So I give the phone back to the guy, and the guy says, "Oh yeah, that place is about 20 blocks over there, and they got to go 15 blocks that way." So these girls have big high heels, and they're walking on cobblestones with bags and bags and bags of all the shopping that they had done. And they said, "You have to carry it for us." I said, "No, I don't have to carry it. That's not part of the contract. Sorry. I told you that we should have brought the car back, but you didn't want to do it. I told you that, by the third time, got to do it." And they blame, "Oh, sure, your fault." I said, "No, I told you, sorry." Anyway, we had to walk. And then when we got to the place that they said the car was, they had just closed it and moved that car to another place on the other side of Dublin. And the women were crying and their feet were sore. And, I had very, sensible shoes on. And these girls had these, big high heels. And anyway, these guys were, digging up the street. And the girls are hobbling, and the guys are like kind of whistling at them. And this one guy goes to us, "What's wrong?" And the girls, "Ah!" And he goes, "Oh," and he gets on his phone, and he is an Arab kind of guy, a gypsy Arab kind of guy, right? And he calls up his brother, and his brother shows up and is going to take us to where the car is. And the girls are scared. "Oh, they're Arabs. Oh, because this is 2005. And I said, "No, no, no, they're fine." And the girls don't want to do it. And I said, "Fine, I'm just going to walk back to the hotel. You girls can do whatever the heck you want." And because we were now only about 3 blocks from where our hotel was. I said, "I'm tired. I'm just going to go up there and go to sleep. See ya. Bye." "Oh, okay, okay." And "Stay with us, stay with us." So the Arab guy comes, gets us, takes us to where their car is, and then negotiates with the guy, and we get the car, right? And the girls are so happy, and all of this, their shopping stuff is still in there, and they go to the guy. "Well, I expect you want some money, don't you?" And he goes, "No, no, don't need any funds. It's not fine." And then they get huffy about him not taking their money. It was like unfreaking believable. And that's when I said, "Ooh, this is 2005." I'm going, we're going to be in caves tomorrow. And it was sad because we drove all over, and they just were flashing their money every which way, and they just thought they could buy whatever they wanted. And they just, dug the, and when they left, they were like, "Oh, I hate Ireland. It's so terrible," you know. But I had a pretty good time because people looked at them and then looked at me and realized that I was just their servant, and they treated me really nice. Like we stayed in a couple bed and breakfasts, and I got up early and helped the this in this one place. This old lady, and she was kind of blind, and they had, because of where it was, she had pretty, she was well located, so she always had a full house. And her daughter and her granddaughter weren't there, which are normally there, so I helped her. And she just was like, anything you want. And so when we came back around and came back to that place, she put me in the nice room and put the two women in the crappy place. And they were like, "Why does he get?" And she goes, "Well, you either stay in that room or stay in your car, whatever you want." And And that was kind of the air of what Ireland was in 2005. That whole, the kind of experience I had in Ireland from 66 up to 88 was pretty much gone. I mean, there were little remnants of it here or there, and I had some really nice experiences in those 3 weeks. But it was really, and I sensed that it could come back around. Grafton Street, oh yes, still has buskers. That's good. Does it still have the guys who do the chalk paintings on the sidewalk? And like, it's a tick, 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 whether the rain's going to wash it away. Europe's rules, I know. Yep. So, that has been my great fortune. That I have, my whole life, I've been in the places where it was amazing at that time when I was there, and I stayed there instead of just the weekend. Like, this is great, I'm going to stay here. Like an astronaut, I stayed there 6 months, because it was so much fun. And every time I would go back, it got a little less fun, and more leather jackets and more Mercedes and Audis. So it's kind of what it is. But the interesting thing is, there's always that interesting place. It keeps moving around. And I'm sure there are a lot of great little towns in Ireland that are still the great little towns that they are. Because it's the same as in America. Same as everywhere I've been. Right? So anyway, oh, look at that. 2 hours, 22 minutes, and 13 seconds. So at 22 seconds, I'm saying goodnight. I love you guys. I'll see you tomorrow morning. Okay? 1, 2, there it is. Still great places everywhere. I love you guys. Catch you later. Sweet, sweet dreams. Good night. Good night.